conservative commentators. Just one of the most brilliant men I've ever walked with. He's at SHR Media, BZ's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon. You can find him on Twitter. You can find him on Facebook. Well, not really on Facebook anymore because Mark Zuckerberg has spent $300 million trying to make certain that Biff Zeppe gets off the air. But you will find him on Twitter at BZEP. I want to introduce to some and present to others one of my best friends, B. Zeppe, in his uh, Darth Vader outfit. There you go. You look great, man. Hold on.
Bane.
There you go.
You remember Bane, Ken?
Yeah.
Bane was the bane of all things, and I'm like Bane tonight. Or is it Darth Vader?
I like the Darth
I'm not
Vader.
sure.
I want to show the American people what .26 looks like in terms of vote count, and I don't know if I'll be able to. We got a light shine there, but hold up. Let me get up here. There you go. No, you can't see it. Okay, that's 21 million votes. .26 is 21 million votes. Can we earnestly say it's 20.8 million, in fact, but can we earnestly say that based on .26, there is no doggone way that Joe Biden beat Donald Trump?
I think if one of these contested states gets reversed in court, you have a win.
Mm-hmm.
If you have two contested states that win, that get overturned, you have a Trump presidency. At this point, though, I can't say that I have an incredible confidence in courts right now. You were talking about Pearl Harbor, were you not earlier?
Yeah, talked about Pearl Harbor earlier. Yes.
Okay. Did you ever read the book Hell to Pay? Or did anybody ever read the book Hell to Pay?
No. No, I didn't.
Okay. That was a theoretical book about what would have happened had we not dropped the bomb. Okay, so on June 6th, 1944, that's D-Day.
Mm-hmm.
And November 1st, 1945 was supposed to be the day that the United States had chosen for the invasion of the Japanese home islands. The Japanese did not succumb, and there was a confusion between the emperor and the rest of the soldiers. Some wished to, most didn't wish to capitulate, and there was an internal conflict. There were many machinations throughout all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But they were determined essentially to continue the hostilities. And if that had continued, that would have resulted in a massive loss of life. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think the loss of life for the Japanese for the both of the bombs were anywhere between 129,000 and 226,000.
Yeah.
The U.S. government then did a study later that said that invading the Japanese home islands, and that means boots on the ground, that means a repeat of D-Day,
Mm-hmm.
would have required it would have required a much substantially larger landing. 156,000 troops landed on D-Day. 10,000 were casualties just in that one day.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were thinking that the government believed the invading the Japanese home islands would cost 5 to 10 million Japanese lives.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were the logistical issues. At the time, you had already occurred VE Day, which was victory in Europe, when Hitler capitulated. What you would have had to do logistically is try to move those war-weary troops from the European theater aboard ships to the Japanese home islands for another assault. It was theorized that that would have cost anywhere from 1.5 to 1.75 million Allied lives, including U.S. soldiers, including those who had won in Europe and then would have found themselves tossed on a ship to go fight in another theater entirely, one in which they were absolutely not familiar at all.
Yeah.
So it's easily said that by dropping the atomic weapons, you potentially saved, I don't know, 2, 3, 5, 10 million lives by doing that. Now, in retrospect, it's always easy to Monday morning quarterback and say something similar to, well, we should never have dropped the nuclear bomb.
Shoot.
For the first time we detonated one of those weapons, even though the scientists had created that, they had no idea during the testing what was going to occur. One scientist even theorized that it would suck up all the air out of the atmosphere and that would be the end of the planet. No one knew.
Yeah.
Absolutely no one knew. And so, in retrospect, that was evil to have dropped the nuclear bomb. Well, in war, there are no good decisions. So you have to weigh, say, 250,000 to 500,000 losses in Japanese lives against pretty much a guaranteed 5 to 10 million lives lost upon an invasion of Japanese lives lost. Mm-hmm. And then add in another 1 million, 1.5 million from the soldiers that would have to fight. And this would be CQB, close quarters battle. You would have to battle the Japanese on their home turf, on their own cities, the likes of which they know intimately, would have had some to set up because all the logistics would have taken quite some time to achieve, to move that many men, that much material, personnel, equipment, etc., from the European theater over to the Pacific theater for a potential invasion. It was astounding. Can I fault Truman for doing that? No.
No.
Not in any way, shape, or form.
Heck no. Who I fault is FDR. Because FDR should have known that he would be dragged into World War II eventually. And he kept being the Indian chief that didn't want to move on that one. And it was a sad way that we were brought into World War II. There was another way that we could have done it in terms of being peaceably aligned with Britain in fighting that particular war.
Well, you had Neville Chamberlain of the British, and you had the Swedish guy. I can't think of his Vidnar, some kind of a strange first name, Quisling, which is where the name Quisling came from. Who both said, well, perhaps it really would be best to try to appease Hitler as much as humanly possible.
Exactly.
The answer was that wasn't humanly possible. Have you ever been to the Pearl Harbor Memorial?
No, I've never been there. I would love to go, but I've never been there.
Every American should do 2 things before they die. Mm-hmm. One of them is they should go to Washington, and you know this. You probably know what I'm about to say. You need to watch the changing of the Tomb of the Unknown.
Exactly.
Every American needs to see that. The second thing is you should take the boat from the island and go out to the Arizona Memorial and watch and listen to the video and look at the names that are on the wall. You're standing over the USS Arizona, and 65 years later, the ship is leaking oil.
Yeah.
To this day.
John
Ula
put up a picture in our chat roll to show where the oil is still leaking. That is freaking amazing.
And to know that there are over 1,000 men entombed down there forever.
Exactly.
And the sad thing is, all of our patriots, all of our fighters, they're almost all gone. And then when they really are gone and there's no one from Martha McCallum to interview on December 7th, no one is going to care anymore.
Yeah. You think we would have learned something from December 7th, 1941?
This country has had historically the worst case of what I term historical Alzheimer's ever. It seems we learn nothing.
Exactly. I want to also broach with you because this is one of the reasons why I enjoy talking with you. Just tremendous brilliance that I can call upon for intellectual discussion. And forgive those who are tuning in this week to see if we will be doing sign language again. We're not doing sign language.
Well, here's the strange thing. I spent the past 30 minutes. This is a Blue Yeti, and it's not the one that I use in the studio, but it turns out that it's a remarkably good microphone, and you don't have to work it up real close. As a matter of fact, it looks like that's what you've got.
Yeah.
On your desk is one of those as well.
I do have one of those Yetis.
Yep.
And it's one of those expensive jobs or whatever.
They're really good mics.
They are. They're exceptional mics. They catch everything.
For an exceptional conservative.
But I want to bring this up because Truman really, the intelligence information that we were getting was that there was a coup attempt at the Hiroshima. And if the coup attempt worked and they had taken out the emperor, there was only one decision to make because we had 3 atomic bombs. There was only one to make, and that was to drop it on Tokyo. And that was the one thing that Truman did not want to go to death with, is that he had to blow up Tokyo. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you think he would have pulled the trigger on that one?
First, you have Hiroshima, and you didn't get the desired result.
Yeah.
Then you have Nagasaki. Well, Nagasaki was not target 1 in the second run. Nagasaki was a second run because a second target because of weather. If you had dropped 2 atomic weapons on Japan, and if you're Truman, about this point, if you had whomever was left to represent the Japanese government, and there was still no capitulation. And again, you've got generals, admirals advising you, and they already told him it would literally cost you unprecedented tolls in terms of men and equipment and the logistic problems that would be involved in that and the lives that would be lost. When you invade the homeland of a particular country, you can expect all these people to fight to the very, very bitter end. And as I indicated before, the last thing you want to do is the last thing a soldier wants to do is to conduct CQB, which is close quarters battle, in homes on a turf where they are completely unfamiliar. That's the last thing that you want to do. It's the worst fighting in the world. That fighting is in, what was that? I think it was...
Like Somalia?
It was either in Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, where you had the fight scene between the sniper and the German, where 2 guys were struggling for a knife, and finally the American just happened to win. Just because that's what you would have had. Now multiply that times millions of instances as you're invading the Japanese homeland. If for no other reason than to save Americans' lives, I think he would have had to. If we had a reasonable working third model, which they weren't quite as sure about, I don't think he would have had any other decision except to, okay, 1, 2, are these people insane?
Yeah.
They must be. They must be. And the other thing that you have to consider is if they're not responding to logic, if after two of the worst weapons in all of humanity dropped and you still have no capitulation, what else is there? You're not going to be dealing, as far as you're concerned, this is a clear illustration of you're not dealing with logical people who cannot be reasoned with, who cannot be negotiated with, that are not listening to any form of logic whatsoever. What other alternative is there? Because you still have to make your country, your people, your priority.
Based on that statement there, BZ, you give me the segue to the question of whether Samuel Alito is in the island in the SCOTUS Sea, or are we looking at something bigger with Alito?
The country.
All right, two developments here on this. First of all, on the Wilmington, Delaware event. Peter Doocy says a law enforcement source familiar with tonight's planning tells Fox if there's a race call by 10 p.m., Biden and Harris plan to speak at 11:30 p.m. outdoors. If there is not a race call by 10 p.m., Biden will appear solo in the 11 p.m. hour indoors. The other development is from the Supreme Court, Victor, and this is an order from Justice Alito mandating that Pennsylvania, all the ballots received after 8 p.m. on Election Day be segregated and secured, and, quote, all such ballots, if counted, be counted separately. There is a petition on the merits still pending before SCOTUS. Justice Alito has ordered the opposing side, the Democrats, to file a response by 2 p.m. tomorrow. This is the Supreme Court taking action.
Well, this is what we learned about Pennsylvania. Apparently, not everybody got the message, and apparently, they counted all of those ballots collectively together. They didn't separate them out. And so Judge Alito today has demanded, before the Electoral College comes together formally and before the electors come together at 12 noon tomorrow, at 9 a.m., Pennsylvania has to give a response in terms of what they're going to do with their ballots. And if they do not obey the order of SCOTUS, then there is a possibility that the electoral ballots will be thrown, the election ballots will be thrown out, the mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania, and as such, Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania. You, sir, is it going to be that easy?
My first thought is not just no, but hell no. If you don't like, folks, on either side of the aisle, if you don't like where you are, if you don't like what we've become, if you're disappointed in the fact that this was not as easily and readily determined as you had wished, there's only one set of individuals who are responsible for this. It's the Democrats. They insisted upon dropping massive political turds in the punch bowl. This is all by design. This is all by design. This didn't have to occur. This was thought up all the way back in March and before, despite the fact that you had, I think, Ron Wyden, Amy Klobuchar, and Elizabeth Warren saying in 2019, mail-in ballots are terrible. They're absolutely terrible. This is not the way to conduct any kind of an election whatsoever until it's decided by them that this is the way to conduct an election. I wish I could tell you that I had any inkling whatsoever as to how this is going to fan out, how this is going to occur. Alito, those areas are his, those belong to him. I don't really see how this is going to do anything except end up in their laps.
Yep.
And essentially for everyone, you, me, people on the far left, no one's going to be satisfied because of this. But it's all because the Democrats and the leftists and the American media maggots decided that they wanted to shove a cat down the toilet and screw everything for everyone. And so I guess you could say these were their goals. This is what they were attempting to achieve. So on that level, yeah, they've achieved it. But in the process, how much confidence in American politicians and the system has been lost by the electorate in the future? I no more saw this coming than the man in the moon. I don't know if you did either. I can ask you that question in a moment. But I don't see any way in which this cannot not go to the courts. The days of anybody casting a vote, those are done. And if we, no matter how this falls, if we continue to insist that we're going to allow mail-in ballots, then we will never have a election again.
Yeah.
When I voted, and I have voted for quite some time, by absentee ballot, and the primary reason for that is where I worked when I was working at the sheriff's department, and where I lived were 91 miles away from each other one way. So I would have to commute 91 miles from my work to come up to where I live, cast a ballot, and then theoretically go back to work, which would have been roughly 4 hours out of my day, which is just that's not feasible. That doesn't make any sense. But when I registered absentee, I had to show I had to show a license. I had to show proof of ID. I had to sign and then have my signature compared. That has nothing to do with mail-in ballots. I honestly do not know how this is going to go. It's, though perhaps the leftists were hoping that this would fall as a major victory in their laps. It's like going to a murder trial and the suspect is found guilty. And then on one side, everyone weeps because the suspect goes to prison or is executed. Mm-hmm. And on the side, it's essentially a Pyrrhic victory because you don't get your loved one back. No one wins. No one.
And you mentioned the fact of illegitimacy. Now, the Democrats have never gotten over 2016. They've never gotten over 2016. And they've
never gotten over 2000.
No, they haven't. They haven't. And actually, we can go all the way back to 1980 with Ronald Reagan beating Jimmy Carter. They haven't gotten over any of that. They still have reminders and remainders unto themselves. They consider Donald Trump to be an illegitimate president, even though he's probably going to go down in history as one of the greatest American presidents. A president who didn't have a single war. Simply amazing that he entered into.
What do we do, Ken, though? Here's the big question. What do we do? Because you have to ask this, and in totality, see, that's the thing that convinces me that there was widespread voter fraud, because any good investigator worth his or her salt at when they're investigating a case, and for this, for example, in terms of voter fraud, you don't have the luxury of examining one thing in isolation itself. You're looking for a continued chain of incidents. You're looking for some causal linkage that leads you to make a particular conclusion. So each one of these numerous points of evidence in terms of cheating, the Democrats want you, and the leftists and the American media maggots want you to take that in isolation. But a good investigator takes all of these together, steps back, looks at the big picture and says, all things considered, what do I have here? What does the evidence lead to? I can make no other conclusion that it leads to massive voter fraud. Would you deny, Ken, the entirely possible that Trump achieved a sweep of this nation not dissimilar to Ronald Reagan?
Well, I believe that he did.
Who massively swept the nation. Is that impossible to think that didn't occur with Trump? I'd say it's possible. But see, if you're in for a penny, you're in for. And the reason that I believe that there's so much massive pushback on this is once a revelation is made in terms of these voting machines, then the logical individual is going to say, okay, we know this about this session on November 3rd, but what about all the other elections that we had in every other state, in every other governor race, in every senator race, in every House race? Newsom really a governor? Are all those representatives really there lawfully? Are all those there lawfully? And if you're not asking that question, I don't know how you can exist. I personally think that this is cheating on an unprecedented level, which will end up not good for anyone. So let me ask you a couple of questions then, Ken. Let's let's throw up. By the way, how much time do I have?
You take
couple
as much
more
time
minutes
as you want, sir. And thank you for allowing me to come on your program. Thank you, sir.
What's your program?
Go ahead, guy.
Ken, I love you like a brother.
I love you too.
You can tell me to go away anytime. Just say, dude, you're chewing up my show. You're not even spitting it out.
No, dude.
Where are the vegetables and the minerals in that? You're not giving me vegetables and minerals. Just get the hell out, dude.
This is a question that I have for Representative Mark Fitcham, out of Tucson in Maricopa County. This is the question I have for him. If you prove that the presidential election is a fraud, then it's not just that the presidential election is a fraud. All of it is a fraud. And everyone has been disenfranchised, whether you legitimately voted or illegitimately voted. You got to throw out the entire election. He sat back and he said, Literally, what we're going to be asking the Supreme Court to do in the next 2 weeks is throw out the entire election because it's illegitimate and allow the U.S. House of Representatives to pick the President of the United States of America. I really believe that that's going to happen.
Okay, you went where I was kind of going in a roundabout way, but since you went there, I cannot disagree with you. I don't think a court decision in terms of an election where the people's voice has been throttled is satisfactory to no one. People need to know and want to know desperately that their vote has a meaning and that once cast, if we know all other things considered, that there is in fact a level playing field and there's no fuckery afoot, then people on either side really should have no qualm, no problem with saying, okay, X won, Y lost, and Z is the result. But it's not that way. It's not that way. Not this year. It's not that way this year. So December 14th is going to roll on by. Do I have really any idea what December 14th is going to yield? No. None whatsoever. So then January 20th is going to roll by. Now, I would guess that you've been emphasizing on your show that, and I've been looking at this on social media, some of the people on the left are going, okay, well, if all things considered and Trump hasn't capitulated, well, when it goes to the House, the president is now Nancy Pelosi.
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
No. Well, if it's not Pelosi, then 435 representatives get to vote, and because we hold the majority in the House, it's going to be Biden Harris. No. That's not how it works. My guess would be that you've probably already had Michael Jones on to explain that.
Yeah.
And didn't he say something similar to, Ken? Well, one state, one vote. Not 435, one state, one vote. Mm-hmm. But here's also, and I want to ask you this question.
Yeah.
No one is going to be satisfied if it goes up to January 20th. And if they vote in the House, nobody's going to be satisfied. If it turns to Trump, nobody's going to be satisfied. If it turns to Biden-Harris, nobody's going to be satisfied. We know for a fact that if it's determined to be Trump, the streets are going to ignite. They're absolutely going to ignite. Mm-hmm. No one is going to be happy. Hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands of lives could be lost in the United States because the Democrats had no sense of place. Mm-hmm. None. Nancy Pelosi today essentially said, okay, I had a $1.9 trillion stimulus on the table that I said no to because I didn't want to give Trump the win. She got half of that. And now she said today, that's okay because now Biden is going to be president. If that's not a political statement, and if that isn't the lead, then everybody is burying the damn lead, which should be a clear indicator that the Democrats couldn't care less about this country. It's all about winning, and if it turns to flame, they don't care. They have theirs. Just like COVID-19, they've got the dirty laundry to go to. They've got vacation places to go to. You're in the damn way. Step aside, shut up, and pay your taxes.
You know, I got to tell you this, BC, as we move forward, one of the biggest fears that rhinos don't have is the fear of what's going to happen on the streets. Because this is really a fraud by the Democrat Marxists and the rhinos. And quite frankly,
it most certainly is.
I'm going to ask the question, who the heck will be the Attorney General when the House of Representatives votes in Trump? Because the Attorney General has to do two types of legal matters. One is, of course, the election fraud. Two, RICO charges. And so I want to give you an opportunity, if you could tell the American people what's RICO, and we know that it applies because if this was an organized effort internationally and nationally to defraud an election.
Federally, RICO stands for a Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organization, and RICO statutes were created to essentially eliminate the mafia. Giuliani was a perfect example of that in basically eliminating the mafia in the state of New York City, and the various environs in which he was a U.S. attorney. You can use RICO violations when you believe that you have a number of individuals linked in order to bring about some kind of a criminal change. In other words, it's a conspiracy, yes, but it's a conspiracy of bad actors all working in concert against the fundamentals of the United States of America. So RICO statutes have been used against gangsters on a big level. They've been used against occasional politicians. RICO statutes have been used against people that the federal government essentially wants to eliminate. And then when you do that, you bring out all your big guns, your U.S. attorney big guns, and you go after them federally. And one of the reasons that you also want to go to RICO, and especially in the state of California, you want to go RICO because the United States government has massively, almost unlimited resources, as General Flynn discovered. The other reason that you want to go RICO under a federal statute, as opposed to almost any other state, is the federal rules of evidence are much looser than they are in your state. No one wants to tell you that. So for example, when they operated Operation Trigger Lock here in California, when the gangs were just absolutely exploding in the 1990s, that was the highest point of crime. 1994, 1995, 1996, 1997, certainly in California and all across the rest of the nation. The gun crime was at its peak. It's not now. Anybody who tells you that is a liar. I lived it. I worked those cases for the states and for the feds. But you wanted to bring in the feds on top of the state individuals, the officers on a state level and a local level, and then you get the feds in, because if you wanted to charge gun crimes through Operation Trigger Lock, the penalties were incredible, and you loved their rules of evidence. So if you go RICO on anybody, there's a big plus to do that. Now, what that takes, though, is what we have not shown for multiple years now. It takes the will to be able to do that. Does the United States government have the will to drop a RICO against itself, against American politicians, which would essentially be admitting our system is incredibly flawed. Should it be able to fly? It should. Will it? The big question is, do they have the will? You know, it's like the cops and riots. Do the cops have the ability to quell riots? Damn straight, all day long. Are they given the ability to do that? No, they're not. They're the tool. Well, they get wielded. The tool in court gets to be wielded by people. Will they use the tool? I don't know.
Because what we talk about in terms of RICO here, we're talking about politicians. We're talking about international corporate leaders. We're talking about local officials. We're talking about governors. We're talking about congressmen. We're talking about...
You haven't even gotten into the corporations yet. I was just talking about politicians. Robert Epstein, if you've ever listened to the 2 videos where he talked about the simple ability of Google to nudge 5 to 10 million votes.
Yes.
You tell me that hasn't been done.
Exactly. And you got a guy who spent $350 million with his lovely wife, Priscilla Chan, to influence the voting in America, including vote counting in America. Tell me. And I just want to let people know, as many times as BZ and I have been in Facebook prison, because we share the same deck, and we use the string to send notes to one another.
You were nice. You split your commissary with me when I was sad, and I split my commissary with you.
That's right.
When you were sad. And we threw notes back and forth to each other, and little strings and whatnot. Yeah, we had each other's back.
We had each other's backs, and quite frankly, I put up on Facebook when I came out of prison the other day the note that under USC 18, and specifically the number. Let me just get that number for those who are following along at home, who think I'm just being mean-spirited. No, I'm being very honest with you. According to USC 597, expenditure to influence voting. and that's 18 USC 597, when Priscilla Chan and Mark Zuckerberg spent $350 million to influence the vote and to count the vote, they were breaking federal law. And you know how I know it's true? I demanded the Facebook checkers to check me on it. That's been 48 hours ago. Ain't heard one word from the Facebook checkers.
So what you're hearing is free deed, free deed, free deed, free deed. That's the crickets in the field, right? Free deed, free deed.
Oh, snap. We's in trouble. It's a lot of trouble going on. Twitter, Google, get your pants together, because you're going to have to pull them up quickly wherever you're headed. BZ,
Do I think there's treason involved? Yes. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe that there are treasonous actors. And I will go so far as to say that they were working in concert so deeply against America. And you may or may not believe this, people, but I have my own opinion. People need to die behind this. People need to be killed behind this. And people need to be made an example of behind this. Betraying your nation to an incredible degree such as this. It's been going on for a long time. And that which does not receive pushback just gets rewarded. And until something happens, until there are actual consequences, no consequences equals a reward. And with rewards, that insists that this is going to continue until someone puts a stop to it.
All I'm saying is a firing squad outside of Washington, D.C., with some well-noted congressional figures taking the bullet, would send a message to America that liberty and freedom reigns. That's all I'm saying. Maybe throw in
I'm not going to say who.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say on what side, because fortunately or unfortunately, I think there's plenty of blame to go both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm. Treason's a dirty sport. Let's play it. Ladies and gentlemen, Biff Zeppe, we love him. Thank you so much for being with us. SHR Media's darling. You'll find him on the air on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. on Berserk Bobcat.
When you say darling, don't you
Yes.
mean this when you say darling?
Yes. Love you, man. SHRmedia.com. Love you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me play
Take care,
this.
sir.
Take care. Let me play this clip for you real quick so you understand what we've been talking about. It's serious. It really is. And you think the media is playing around? No, some of the people in the media will also be involved in it depends on who we have as president and who we have as attorney general. And my recommendation for attorney general, you all might be thinking Giuliani. I'm saying no. I say go Sidney Powell. Giuliani might be a very, very good DA. Might be a very, very good attorney general. I'm just saying, if you really want to do this right.
Nobody knows how it happened. Nobody was there watching it. This is all caught on video. Basically, Steve, the gig is up now. This whole thing that the Democrats are doing is going to collapse like a house of cards. Now, momentarily, we've got another witness who's going to be testifying today who got a hold of a machine in an obscure county in southeast Georgia, Ware County. Gentleman's name is Garland Favorito. He's about to testify. I was able to read his testimony earlier. He's on in about a half hour. You'll be able to see him. He's got a Dominion machine that they were able to do a forensic study on in Ware County. It's a small county. He's got evidence that this machine, Steve, has flipped the votes. They flipped votes. They flipped 37 votes in Ware County. He's got the evidence from Donald J. Trump to Joe Biden. Now, 37 doesn't seem like a lot of votes, but it's a very small county. It represents just over 0.25, actually 0.26 of the total votes cast. Now, isn't it ironic that 0.26 is what Biden won by?
Exactly. This is
Go
my
ahead-
point.
go ahead,
is that
Steve. Sorry.
It shows you it can be. It shows you it can be done, and that they do it. That's the
Yes.
importance of this testimony.
Yes. It was done. He's going to testify to it. They have the evidence. And of course, the argument is going to be, okay, if you could do it in Ware County, you can do it in Augusta County, you can do it in Fulton County, you can do it in Cherokee County or Cobb County. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in Maricopa County in Arizona. You can do it in Detroit. This is Steve, I'm telling you, the dam is breaking. The Democrats don't know what to do. One Democratic senator, Democratic Parler, nice young lady, when the video's over, she has a chance to ask a question, and she says, we've already debunked this. This has already been debunked. And Mayor Giuliani said, excuse me, the video came out, was made available yesterday at 11 p.m. It's now noon. That's 13 hours. There's no way you debunk this. But see, that's their talking points. They're reading it off a chart from the DNC. That's all they have.
That's all that they have, ladies and gentlemen. Muriel Bowser, the mayor of the District of Columbia, announces today that she's going to give $1,200 to 20,000 unemployed district workers. A stimulus, a one-time stimulus payment, 20,000. She waited until she thought cheating Biden was going to make it to the White House, so that she would be in the goods. You got to ask yourself, if she really, really cared about the poor who are suffering from COVID-19, how come she wouldn't give up money from her campaign contributions? Number one. And why did she wait till almost 2 weeks before Christmas to give money to unemployed folk who've been unemployed a long time thanks to her public policies? Ladies and gentlemen, don't think of it as a gift. Understand, you're going to have to pay that bad boy back. It's called virtual alliance money. They used to slide that kind of money across the table at you to make certain that you understood that you belonged to certain folk. Yeah. And by the way, that $1,200, why doesn't it go to every district resident who suffered as a result thereof? No comment from the Democrat Marxist totalitarians that make up the city council and the mayor's office. It's just a show. It really is. Ladies and gentlemen, take it from Nancy Pelosi, who will tell you, we've been holding back money a long time because we've been waiting for Joe Biden to get in office, and we fixed it so that he could. Nancy, one of these days, you'll be standing behind a target, or at least in front of one. Who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight. If you don't remember anything I said tonight, I hope that you do remember this, because God bless Bonnie Williams. Love you dearly. Thank you so much. God bless Miss Intern. Thank you so very much. God bless John. Thank you so much for being in the chat room. God bless Mary Brockman. Smoochers Gracias, my bouncer in chief. If you diss her, you diss me. God bless Mrs. Big, who keeps the dream alive. Thank you so much. And God bless each and every one of you. BZ, love you, man. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight from around the world. You will find this on BitChute tomorrow morning, and as well YouTube with TECN TV and the Exceptional Conservative Show. If you don't remember anything else tonight, I hope that you do remember this. God bless America. It is now time for America to bless God. Good night. God bless you.